Hey everyone. So today we're going to be taking a closer look at the one and only, one of my idols, Arnold Schwarzenegger. In my personal opinion, Arnold to this day cannot be beaten in a lot of aspects. Together with knowing that he was so far ahead of his time when he competed, only proves that with today's technology and understanding of training principles and nutrition, there is no reason why he wouldn't have gone up and won up to 10 Olympias or even more. And I'll explain why. The first reason is Arnold's mindset. He was big on visualization and using that as his weapon to shape his body and psych out his opponents. Having such extreme level of concentration and the ability to push yourself mentally, even when your physical body gives out, is a gift of its own. To this day, I don't really think that anyone has truly been able to match that. Yes, the likes of Dorian Yates, Ronnie Coleman, and a few natural competitors had and have the drive to just lock themselves away and have a machine-like approach in leaving no stone unturned when it came to physicality. The difference between every other athlete and Arnold was his openness to learn, grow, mature, have superior intelligence and charisma, which all together played a part into becoming a fitness and bodybuilding icon. Yes, I do believe that he is to this day the GOAT, greatest of all time. He truly made working out, training hard, fun and desirable, mixed with the living a fun life and pursuing other things and not being one-dimensional, as is evident by his university education, his business mindset, and his acting and political careers. So basically, he made the whole training and bodybuilding really fashionable. It became fashionable to work out and grow muscle. And that got a lot of people on his side. The second most important thing was Arnold's body. He had a unique physique. You could grab Arnold's photo from his bodybuilding heyday and cut off the head and you would still be able to recognize his body. I think that Arnold was a genetic anomaly. He had both long muscle bellies that peaked at the same time. If you take a closer look at his biceps, you will see that the gap between his bicep head and the elbow wasn't too big, as in the case with long muscle bellies. Thus it gave him bicep size. On top of his outer bicep head developed an extreme peak, which is incredibly unusual. He had the perfect combination of size and peak development, which gave his arms that famous shape and enormous size. Together with his tricep size and separation, he had perfectly balanced arms in my opinion. They were huge, powerful, but still very aesthetic, which gave him that trademark front double bicep look. Arnold's chest should be a whole separate topic in my opinion. His specs were simply enormous. For a guy who leaned more towards more of an ectomorph, as was evident in his early days, especially in his beginner photos with sloping shoulders, his pecs were enormous and to this day cannot be beaten. His pectorals hung low, were very wide and had crazy fullness, which can probably be attributed to his intense chest training regimen. In other words, he loved to train chest and arms. And I think it essentially proved a point that the more you train a body part, the bigger it grows, the more shapely it becomes. So I don't think people nowadays have an excuse to, have lagging body parts. If we take a closer look, Arnold has a very short torso. It's evident by his short abdominals and long arms, whose elbows visibly sit below the belly button line. In bodybuilding, the shorter the torso, the more massive the bodybuilder looks because it makes the lats look so much wider. So it gave the man a much more wider and massive look. Together with his constant vacuuming exercises ensured that his waist was quite small. And on his huge frame, his waist did look tiny, even though it may have been almost 30 inches. A lot of people laugh at Arnold's leg development nowadays, and it's understandable because leg training has progressed so much. However, don't forget that in the 1970s, the leg development wasn't as heavily emphasized. And it really wasn't until Tom Platz came around that leg development was pushed really hard and became a major focus. Hence why nowadays you have a lot of the X-frame body shapes. Even for a tall man standing at 6'2", his legs were still massive, but proportional. You only have to take a look at his famous 1974 most muscular pose to see how proportional and enormous he truly was. And at their peak, his legs were almost 30 inches anyway, which is, no small feat for any professional bodybuilder. And I think 30 inches and bigger is just huge. And I think they look really good on him. They were proportional, they were aesthetic, and they had size and excellent separation. And it was just well balanced. Overall, even to this day, Arnold had one of the most well-balanced and aesthetic physiques. Being so proportional, you could not tell how massive he truly was until you got closer to him. I've met him a few times, and even from a distance, even at this age, you can't really tell, but when you get close and you meet him and you shake his hand, even to this day, he's massive. He's a very large man. So all those years and hours upon hours of training really paid off. At 6'2", he was pushing between 240 and 250 pounds in a single-digit percentage of body fat, which for the 1970s is remarkable, I think. His most massive and aesthetic look was in 1974, where he was about 245 pounds at about 7 to 8% body fat, judging by the pics. Again, quality of photographs back then wasn't as great, so it's hard to judge, but I think judging by the separation and some of the striations, that yes, he was in the single digits for sure. My opinion, 1974, he looked absolutely phenomenal. Most people know his look from the 1975 documentary Pumping Iron, but there he was smaller and leaner. And the reason for that is because he dropped a lot of weight for a movie that he did the year before. And people didn't really get to see, his true potential because of that, or how big he was before. Because Pumping Iron was one of the first, proper movies about bodybuilding, and you really got to see him up close. If Arnold continued to compete without interruptions, in my opinion, then, who knows how many times he would have won. I personally knew people that trained and met Arnold in the early 1970s when he came to Australia, and they all said that Arnold was a once-in-a-lifetime occurrence from a physique perspective. You do occasionally have people like that come about, like Einstein in physics or Mozart in music. As I said, I have met him, and I have to say that he has this infectious thirst for life. To live, to achieve and conquer, and you're just drawn to it. You want to be like him. You want to, pursue life just as passionately as he has, which I think what has also greatly helped his bodybuilding popularity, and he became a fitness icon. So overall, I don't think that he has been surpassed yet, in my personal opinion. In terms of sheer size and conditioning, yes, he's been blown away by the likes of Ronnie Coleman, Dorian Yates, etc. But when you add Arnold's ability to pose well, which is now becoming a lost art form, you just can't beat him. His three-quarter double bicep turn pose, the famous one, or his most muscular, just blows competitors away today with proportion, mass, conditioning, striations, just the presentation and everything. You just can't beat it. Personally, I don't think that the 1980 Mr. Olympia was too controversial, because we have to remember the footage from the Olympia wasn't that great. Yes, it's still available, and it's called Total Rebuild. You can watch it, but the quality of the filming wasn't that great, so you couldn't really see all the details. So it's quite hard to see how good the competitors actually were. But I think you could definitely say one thing, that even at being at 70%, which he was, because it was a quick contest prep, he had really good, in fact, awesome conditioning. You can just see all the striations and the separation. It looks quite dry. And he was still aesthetically pleasing, and his posing was great too. So in my personal opinion, I think he just simply won based on points. Because people forget that posing, conditioning all has an effect on the judging and on the points. I know that my opinion will be extremely controversial and unpopular, but I do stand by it, because I think at the end of the day, yes, he was a promoter, but I think they weren't going to just openly and blindly let him win if he wasn't good enough, because it would have forced bodybuilding and the Olympia to lose all credibility. So I think he definitely was up there, and I think it was well deserved, in my personal opinion. Let me know what you guys think, and thanks for listening.